It's going to pop up and say whether things are happening there. Tony, do you want to be involved in this too?
Sure.
Okay, good. I forgot to tag you in the post, but let's wait for some people to tune in, and then we'll then we'll go. If anyone does. Oh yeah.
It's like we're doing beer critiques.
Yeah. Do you think we should? Do you want to have the beer in the? We shouldn't have the beer in the. I think it's okay, but the beer shouldn't be.
We're all adults.
Right there.
Allegedly.
So, anyways, for those who are watching this later, we are here on location with Stan Climie, who is third clarinet with the. Or actually, why don't I let everybody introduce themselves? So let's start over here. This is Tony.
Hi, everybody.
What do you do, Tony?
I'm a clarinet player. Grew up in Calgary, in Alberta, in Canada, and then right now I'm based in New York, specifically in Queens, freelancing there. So just visiting right now.
Cool. And this is.
I'm Stan Climie. I'm the third clarinet and bass clarinet with the Calgary Philharmonic. And just realize that everyone you're going to meet at this table is or has been one of my students.
Yeah. And I can't see. Is that on Kathryn now?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kathryn Ladano. I'm a bass clarinetist. I'm based in Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario. And I'm the artistic director of New Music Concerts, new music presenter and producer in Southern Ontario.
That's right.
Cool. Hi, I'm Andrew Morrow, and I'm a Calgary-based clarinetist and bass clarinetist, and kind of a specialist in contemporary music, and got my own new music ensemble called Time Point.
Yeah. So we are here at, we've got 3 people watching. Can you guys hear the audio? Can you just comment and say if you can hear the audio? I actually can't write anything while it's on video. Hello? So this is supposed to be a question answer, so if you can think of anything to ask, we have 4 people now, that's pretty cool. That's as many people who are almost as here. That's pretty neat. So, but if you could just comment and let us know if you can hear the audio, that'd be great, because there was a problem with this the other day. Well, we'll keep going without that. Yeah, so this is, we can hear it. Okay, great. Natalia says we can hear the audio. That's perfect.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. Thanks,
So
Natalia.
let's go around and do kind of the first question rolled in actually before we started, and it was from Keith O'Rourke, Internet. Hello? We got 5 people now. Man, this is so rough. The internet connection here is really bad. And
Wi-Fi?
I'm on Shaw Open, which should be working better. That's the Shaw. I'm going to call the Shaw later. Anyway, so so Keith O'Rourke's question was, he's a doubler, by the way, and his question was, which method books do you guys prefer for learning bass clarinet? Because I think a lot of people have like their clarinet method books, and do you use the same method books, or do you have special ones that you like to go to? So let's start over there with Stan.
There's a bunch of books by Bill Rhodes.
Rhodes?
Yeah. And they're not. There are a lot of transcriptions. So they're. But if you're going to play the bass clarinet, anything you can do on clarinet, you can do on bass clarinet. So don't just think you've got to find something that's either bass clarinet or bass clef. Just play your clarinet works on bass clarinet, and if you can do it, you're going to be a fine bass clarinet player. And it's nice if you can find bass clarinet things if you've got a low C bass, but if you're just starting on bass, you likely don't have a $10,000 low C bass clarinet. So
20.
Yeah, it's probably more than that now.
I think they're closer to 12 American.
Yeah, so just play clarinet things. Anything you can do. There are some books, but I don't think you need to go that way. Just anything you've got on clarinet, go for it.
Kathryn, thoughts?
I guess the first thing I would say is I am not a doubler. I don't really play clarinet, so I can't really speak too much about transitioning from one to the other. Although I did that a little bit, but I kind of agree with Stan. I do like the Rhodes books, and I have a couple students right now that use those. I like them because while I also give my students clarinet exercise books because there are way more of those. I like the Rhodes books because I think they are better written for someone who's going to be specializing in bass clarinet, especially someone that's relatively new to the instrument, because it focuses a lot on some of the low notes, doesn't go quite as high. So I think it's better for someone that's new to the instrument.
He's also got some good solo books.
Yeah.
The Rhodes solo book is really good.
Andrew? Cool. I'm with Stan. I just use the clarinet stuff. I find that like often with bass clarinet stuff, people they get that word bass in there, and then they kind of get afraid of the high notes, and so a lot of students they'll play, they'll spend their whole life playing below the break, and then some composer throws them a piece, and they're up in the altissimo, and they have no idea what they're doing. So yeah, I usually stick with the clarinet stuff. If you have a low C instrument, pick up the cheapest cello box suites you can, and just start reading those in bass clef as written, and I find that is fantastic.
Tony, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I also like to play the box suites because it's first of all it sounds great on the bass clarinet. It goes down to low C and stuff, and you get to practice reading bass clef, which is really important if you're serious about bass clef. And also, like everybody said, I like to practice regular clarinet stuff as well because practical point of view, sometimes you don't have time to practice both clarinet and bass clarinet, and sometimes. Yeah, it's good practice. I remember when I was trying to learn the Saint-Saëns Sonata on the bass clarinet, and it's not easy, especially if your instrument is not perfectly fine in tune. The second movement, it's not gonna come out like the one. But so you make sure that all of your instrument is calibrated, and you as a player can play it, and it's good practice.
So yeah, that's about that. I have a couple of questions about that I think too, because I don't really play that much bass clarinet. But how valuable is it, do you think, to be practicing in bass clef, and how often do you practice in bass clef?
Well, I'm very comfortable in bass clef. I started piano when I was like 5 years old, so I don't have any trouble with bass clef. But students are so intimidated by bass clef when especially if they've not had any keyboard experience. And it's, they're going to start writing notes in. And I use the Dotzauer books or the bassoon books so that they limit the range. So you get familiar with notes that are going to be on the clef all the time. And you just keep that recognition of those notes. And then you slowly increase your range. And depending on what you're playing in orchestra, you're not going to get those extreme bass clef notes where you've got 6 or 7 ledger lines. You do sometimes, but it's anything that's going to be early bass clef instrument, cello, bassoon, it's going to be really good for bass clef. But it's something you should really know how to read.
So for you, for mostly clarinet repertoire then, or bass clarinet repertoire, do you encounter much bass clef? Probably not.
Not really, no. But it's there. It's absolutely there. And I was one of those students that was very much intimidated by bass clef. I hated reading bass clef. I wasn't very good at it. But I did spend a lot of time doing exactly what you said. And that really helped. But now I figure I'm at a point where I don't really want to spend the time doing it anymore. So if someone's going to write a new piece for me, I always say just don't write it in bass clef. Just write it in treble clef. And there were a few times in my past where I would take a difficult bass clef piece of music, and if it was just too much for me to learn in bass clef, I just rewrite the whole thing in treble clef. I've done that many times before.
That works.
Yeah, I find unless you're playing in an orchestra or doing some of the older solo bass clarinet stuff, you're never really ever going to see bass clef. But I like to have it there, just kind of practice it on the regular basis. Otherwise, it falls away really quickly. So I just keep the box suites around, and it's always great. If you're at some gig and someone throws, it's like, oh, can you just cover the bassoon part? And you're like, yeah, not a problem. Or, oh, shoot.
What if it's in C clef though?
Well, yep, and that is another kind of skill you have to kind of work on if you want to have it. But that one is really rare.
But that's a skill you work on in your practice room.
Yeah.
So when you get to a rehearsal and someone says, gee, our second bassoon player just got sick. Here's the part. Can you play it? Well, yeah, then you're ready for it. You can take a shot at it. And something like that, again, there's not got that huge range. But if you've spent your time in your practice room working on it, and then if it really gets ugly, you'll get bass clef in A, which will add 10 years to your life. I'm only 23. Too much bass clef in A.
So Tony, what about you? Like, you're more like me. You're more of a doubler, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
You play more regular clarinet than bass, right?
I play both pretty frequently.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm like 99% normal clarinet, so it's weird because for me, I can read bass clef if I'm playing piano. If I'm playing bass guitar, I can do it, but as soon as I put the clarinet in my hand, it's like my brain.
Well, on clarinet, it's easy. But then on bass, what do? I've got a clarinet in my hand. I can't figure what the bass clarinet is.
Yeah, absolutely.
You got to have that instrument physically in your hands.
So we've only got 2 people left. Oh my God. Okay, well, are there any clarinet players? There's 4 people again. Are there any clarinet players who have a question? Yeah, Andrew's one of them, and you guys are all tuned in. But does anyone have any questions for these bass clarinet specialists? You can go ahead and post them. But amazingly, we've already been live for 16 minutes, so we'll see how much longer this goes. But anyways, so for me, like, I do a lot of regular clarinet, as I was saying, but I have always kind of struggled with the high notes and the voicings up there. So what kind of advice do you have for that?
Practice.
Yeah.
That's a good way to describe it, is voicing. And on bass clarinet, there's 2 sets of fingerings for high notes. You've got the fingerings that you would use that you carry over from clarinet, and then there's all the harmonic fingerings that are fake fingerings. And if you can master those, you're going to have much better control on your high notes. And what those are, it's like high C is your thumb, high C sharp is your first finger, high D is nothing, high E flat is the side A flat key. So when you've got those under control, then you're going to be able to control anything. So if you can use that as kind of a stepping stone to get to those other fingerings, and you get just way more control if you've got those and the ability to control those. And it takes a lot of work, but it's that whole voicing thing that you need.
Yeah. You started with bass, like you only play bass though, so that's maybe not a good question, but what do you think?
I have an answer that's very different. For me, I really struggled with those notes for a long time. I'm sure Stan remembers from my lesson. Those were not my good notes. And I spent a lot of time with several different teachers really trying to develop that and really improve upon it. And actually, the thing that worked the best for me was actually when I got into improvisation. And I found that improvising and forcing myself to improvise in that range of notes that I really wasn't very good at. Somehow, I can't really explain the process, but somehow something clicked for me. So it was just that discovery, that exploration, without a teacher saying, this is exactly how you do it, or without reading a method book and knowing that, the notes had to come in this sequence, or, I had to play this note with this articulation or something like that. Once I got rid of all that stuff and just focused on me and improvising and making my own music, it solved all my problems for me. It wasn't an overnight thing, but that process of improvising and taking all the lessons away was the thing that did it for me, and I'm very comfortable in that range now.
I found on the bass clarinet, I never really had problems with the high notes. I definitely have problems with the high notes on the clarinet for some reason, but not on the bass. And I always kind of feel like when I was learning the bass clarinet, I always kind of would climb up the bass clarinet. I find that also seems to work for a lot of my students. And the harmonic fingerings, like Stan was saying, are just
climb up.
Like, just like start on C, long C, and just lift up one finger at a time. So you're just kind of working your way up and trying to get more comfortable with the higher and higher notes. And also not like the idea of reaching for them, I find, is problematic. If you always think about coming at them from above, even if you're not, that seems to produce a better result. I also find hearing the pitch that you're supposed to be playing makes a huge difference. So if you have like a piano or something there where you can play the pitch, or having a friend, so you're not getting the wrong partial.
Yeah, I find too many times band teachers too kind of just consider playing clarinet as like pushing buttons, and you do have to think about what you're doing a little more than that. So what about Tony? What do you think about that?
Well, I completely agree with Stan, and it's important to, I think that it's the first step to learn the harmonic fingerings, and then knowing when, developing a taste to know when you want to use what fingerings, because they all, to my opinion, they all sound kind of different. Some might, I might use this fingering for like an excerpt from Steep Steps by Ellie Carter. It pops out more, or more lyrical part, I might use a different one where I have to sustain it more, tapering away. So yeah, I think it's kind of develop your vocabulary of fingerings, I guess. That doesn't sound too nerdy.
That's okay here. So I don't know. I guess people aren't asking questions, which is funny because I know that probably a few hundred people will watch this later, and then many will post in the comments. But Matthew James just tuned in. Hello, Matthew. Can you comment something? Just say hello. Anyways, I have a question because this actually pertains to me. My bass clarinet is you, and you touched on this a second ago, Stan. Like you said that your clarinet, you get a really, some of the student clarinets are pretty poor, and it's tough to keep them maintained. And even though I just asked about the high notes, I think many of my problems with the high notes are actually the fact that my clarinet is really not a very good bass clarinet. But many students struggle with this. So what advice do you have for students who are dealing with a kind of clarinet that is, maybe not perfect, but they can't afford a $20,000 instrument?
Well, you don't need to spend that kind of money, but you do have to have it working properly. And you've got to find somebody that can figure out where your mechanical problems are with your instrument and how to fix them. I always joke with Andrew when we're doing clinics that when you've got 6 bass clarinet students and you've got them for 2 hours, that's no problem, because you're going to spend the first hour getting all their clarinets to work, because you do have those kind of mechanical problems. And on a bass clarinet, you've got about 3 places where you're always going to find the problems. So you just got to make sure those are the places where that you attack first and get them working, because once you've got an instrument that plays easily, you just develop these great students who love the instrument as much as people hearing it do, or composers who want to write for this amazing sound. Students are the same way. They're just in love with it all of a sudden. So you've got to get an instrument that functions.
Absolutely.
I really just agree with what Stan says. Most students, at least for my younger students, they tend not to have great instruments. Sometimes they're just using the instruments they have at their high school or their elementary school, and those are horrible. They're not well maintained. So yeah, I think the most important thing is to keep it in good working order. But then I guess that's a whole other challenge, is finding a good repair person that knows what they're doing, and that is a whole other challenge on its own.
Yeah, I agree with both of them completely. I find a lot of repair guys, especially if you're in a smaller town or you don't have a really reputable repair guy, they have so much work that they're doing that they don't really have the time to dedicate. When you bring in, you're like, my bass clarinet's not working, can you find the problem? They'll shine the leak light down it, and they'll be like, oh, there's the leak. But it's like, the alignment, and really there could still be a leak after they shine that leak light down. So, like Stan was saying, you spend that first hour fixing the bass clarinets, go take your bass clarinet to whoever the best local bass clarinetist or clarinetist is and have them play it. It'll cost you maybe $20 for them to sit there for 15 minutes and whittle, turn a couple screws, and who knows, could be spectacular when you walk away. Or at the very least, they'll be able to say, take it to your repair guy, tell him, you need some more cork here, you need some more felt here, this pad needs to be replaced, and stuff like that. And I find a lot of these general wind band repair guys are really good when you say, these are the exact things I need fixed to get my bass clarinet working.
Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think they covered most of the problems you face when you get a student that wants to learn the bass clarinet. And unfortunately, bass clarinet is so huge and it's so complicated mechanically. It's so prone to disasters. So it's important that you as a teacher kind of take the initiative so the instrument is in a working manner. But also, some tips. It's important that the mouthpiece is decent, so that the reed will work, and then of course the bass clarinet reed is also much bigger, so it's also much more prone to warping crazily. So it's also important to make sure that the reed is working. But also, a lot of times the corks on the tendons or on the mouthpiece, I find in the student, they're really worn out, so it's kind of wobbly, so it causes leaks. So I always carry around rolls of Teflon tapes so that I can feel them, and usually that does a lot of the first kind of emergency fixing, but if you're lucky. So yeah, at least I have some tricks for the
up your sleeve.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, we still got 4 people tuned in. If you guys have any questions, just let us know. But yeah, at this point, I think we'll kind of try to wrap up here. But let's go around and let's just ask each of these bass clarinetists what is sort of there must be some question that you normally encounter with your lessons that is sort of I don't know, the most frequently asked problem or something, and what a solution is for it. Andrew, do you want to start?
Yeah. I find it's not so much a problem that the students have, but it's more that the teachers have with their students, and it's that they are too quiet all the time. I often ask students, when was the last time your band teacher told you were playing too loud? And the answer is always never, right? And, and it's like, so we have this idea that the bass clarinet has this really little sound, but of course it doesn't, but it just seems, they get that idea in their head. And so I would just say always try to keep trying to push yourself to having a bigger sound while keeping an idea of good tone in mind.
Well, I think for me and for these guys here too, is that I was really fortunate to have studied with a bass clarinet player and who sounds great on the bass clarinet, because I find a lot of clarinet players, they double on the bass clarinet and they don't feel quite comfortable, so they don't put enough air through the instrument so the instrument vibrates. I think that's one of the best part of the instrument is that it literally shakes your face when you play. But
Your glasses are bouncing around on there.
I mean,
you don't have glasses.
I started studying bass clarinet very soon after I started studying the clarinet. So I listened to a great bass clarinet sound growing up. So I think that's really important part of learning bass clarinet is that you, just like learning clarinet, you listen to good sound, bass clarinet sound, bass clarinet playing. So.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
You guys have thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, you're playing this amazing instrument. It's you've got more repertoire than almost any instrument now. The repertoire in the 20th and 21st century far exceeds any other instrument. Piano, violin. Believe me, you've got more bass clarinet music than those guys do. You might have to look a little harder for it, but it's amazing. It's written with great challenges, and you've got this instrument that's magic. Enjoy it. Play it, and play it loud, and play it strong. Be proud.
That's like Harry Sparney called it the Emperor of the Instruments, and he was totally adamant that's the best instrument ever invented, and he's got to, you gotta have that kind of passion, I guess. Kathryn?
So I've been trying to think of a question that students ask, and I actually haven't really been able to think of anything.
Sorry,
but
I forgot to bring this, and then you poured a follow-up, so you just let it free.
Perfect timing here. We're having fun. By the way, we're at a place called Beer Revolution in Calgary, Alberta, and they have, what was it? A delicious craft beer and addictive pizza or something, and we thought that was a perfect venue to discuss the bass clarinet. Rock and roll music, which we've turned down anyway. Hey, sorry, Kathryn.
no problem. The beer is absolutely fantastic here, by the way. But the only thing that comes into my mind, which is a really stupid question that I get asked all the time, not from students but from people, which is, what kind of weird saxophone is that you're playing? That's the question I get the most. It's like, is that a black saxophone? But I guess the only thing, if I have to have some parting words or whatever, something to say, I guess because I'm an improvising musician, I feel I should say more about that. And so if I could give any piece of advice to musicians in general or students, and one of the things I try to instill in all my students is you should improvise, you should be creative, you should discover your own sounds on the instrument, find your own musical voice. It's not just in the music that you read, it's in your head and your heart as well. So that's what I would say.
Pretty cool. Unless anyone has anything else to say, I don't know, I guess we can leave it at that. Do you have anything else to add, Andrew or Stan or Tony?
Yeah, actually, I think that's
We got 5
just
people now,
dead
by the
on.
way.
I think it's one of the most exciting things about bass clarinet is that it hasn't been. I mean, it's been around for long enough, and it's been discovered. I mean, it's been exploited, but it's still very much new, and it's so exciting because you can do whatever, and it's yours. You're not trapped in this kind of dogma or this image. You have to produce this kind of tone or whatever. Not that that's bad, but it's exciting in its own way. So, yeah.
Carlene is here. Hi, Carlene. She's just tuned in, so.
We're just talking about you.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're just signing off here pretty quick, unless you have a last-minute question. But yeah, thank you everyone for watching. And if you do think of anything, I guess ask in the comments, and maybe I can convince Stan or Tony or Andrew or Kathryn to come back and answer some more questions in the future sometime. But let me know what you thought of this too. I guess it was sort of an experiment. Let's see if we could have some interesting live conversation. And but yeah, it was lots of fun. So we're gonna, I think, end it here. And I hope you have a great night.